I would say the thing that makes the Boston scene special, insofar as it's special, is that it's a fairly small scene compared to what's happening on the West Coast or in Texas, and it's pretty geographically isolated from the other scenes. So we're kind of living in our own little bubble here.
We decided to move the company actually from Pittsburgh to Boston because there was this really tight-knit community who got together every month to talk shop and drink beers, and they really welcomed us in many ways. We actually moved in with Harmonix, who offered us office space when we were looking for a place to crash when we first moved out here.
There's a lot of cities where people go and they make video games, and basically talent comes in. Like San Francisco, I think a lot of the video games come out of the tech space. Boston is a very interesting city because all the talent that you see coming into the video game development community comes out of the universities.
It's hard for me to say whether or not all the universities, if there's a direct connection between the kind of games that get made here and sort of the somewhat brainiac culture that tends to exist outside our doors. I don't really think of our games personally as particularly brainy. I mean, we make games about rock and roll and dancing.
Boston is a city with 1 million people and 8 million students, right? Like everyone comes to Boston as a student, and now learning how to make video games is a huge discipline that a lot of people do, and it's very multidisciplinary, right? Like there's coders and there's artists and there's audio guys and there's, project managers. So basically just about any walk of academic life you can get into video games. And so you see all these kind of small indie studios sprouting up out of the universities, and Boston just has a ton of that.
Academia and MIT and Harvard and Northeastern, there's tons of schools here, all with game-relevant programs. And I think that that's part of what creates that very cerebral, very design-driven development atmosphere here. And it also provides, I think that's where the indie scene in the Boston area comes from, and it provides incredible talent for us to recruit from. It was a big driver for why we moved to Boston from Pittsburgh.
I think Boston must be one of the closest knit video game development communities on the planet, if not the closest.
It's small enough that everybody knows everybody else still. I know the head of every studio around here, and if we want to get together for lunch, we all go out together for lunch. It's really easy. And it's big enough to have an impact on the industry. I mean, this is what was it, 3 years ago, it was like BioShock and Guitar Hero both came out of Boston at the same time. And in many ways, I think that was a turning point for the area as a center of game development.
They made it their mission to make sure that the local community was like friends and they knew each other. So they started these monthly meetings where everyone would get together and just have a beer and talk about what they were doing. And it was only for game developers. And that's still going on today. Every month everyone gets together and just has a beer and they just talk about stuff. It's an incredibly academic community because of all the universities. So people are generally speaking less confidential than they are in other cities, and they're more willing to talk about this neat new tech that they're playing with or these neat challenges that they're trying to overcome.
So it's a tight community with really, really talented developers and some great schools churning out innovative stuff, so that's why we're here.
And finally, I mean, to be honest, there's no publishers in Boston, and I think that matters, right? Because publishers are, generally speaking, the tightest-lipped people in the community. They don't want to talk about the games until they're ready, and they're, have very big secrecy things. And because there are no publishers in Boston, I think people are much more willing to speak freely and openly. And as a result, everyone knows everyone talks, and everyone hangs out. And I mean, when we were making Slam Bolt Scrappers, we had people coming in from Harmonix, from Demiurge, from the indie community, everywhere to come and play our game. We had people from Rockstar New England come in, play our game, give us feedback long before we even showed it to the public. Because these are people that they're making video games, we're friends with them, we know they're going to give us honest feedback. We're not actually worried about them stealing our game because they're our buddies. We're having beer with them once a month and it's going to be really awkward if they do that. And so we were getting great feedback from them, which is just a fantastic thing about this community.
I think PAX has always just been a really good kind of cultural fit for us, because I think, the way that it's kind of growing up here is that we get a lot of energy out of our fans. Our fan base has been pretty committed and passionate. They're pretty critical of our work, but we welcome and appreciate that. I think, I think we have a strong sense that our fans have helped us make our games better.
Would definitely stay in Boston. And to that end, when we were starting up Firehose back in 2008, I was talking to Ethan and Sherith about this, we were having discussions about where should we do this. And so some of the places that popped up were Seattle, San Francisco, and hilariously enough, Singapore. And so those were other considerations. And ultimately we decided, you know what? We love it here. We love the people here. We're gonna stay put. And we'll just, learn to snowboard and play hockey really well. So that way we have something to do when the ice comes around.
I think a lot of us have a real affection for Boston. It's just like a cool place. It's a compact city. It's it's walkable. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in very close proximity. If you're into this kind of lifestyle, it's a great place to be.
I think the thing about the Boston game dev scene is that there is a ton of untapped potential. And in the coming years, that potential is going to be realized.